we would like to engage you in working on a project that's developing right now. So on each of your tables and in your program booklet on page 5, you have the profile of Wellness Through Community Connections. I'm going to introduce to you some champions that we will help facilitate these conversations. We would like to capture your feedback because what we're trying to do is to do a similar version of fostering a sense of community and creating a sense of belonging through sport and physical activity for newcomers to Greater Victoria. But how do we do that? What are the barriers? How do we overcome them? How do we communicate our programs? Who do we need to engage? What policy do we need to evolve or to dismantle completely to foster that sense of belonging? And what programs do we need to update and create? That was lots of fun. Thank you very much. I think you should give yourselves a round of applause. I kind of want to hear some of the themes that you have been discussing. I sort of picked it up, but I'd like for us to share with each other.
Removing barriers like language is very important for newcomers, so however you plan to do that. Pay attention to those who are falling through the cracks. They may need special attention. And then there's also intersectionality, not just language, but also using other lenses for people with different abilities. There was also spirit games, where an entry point to activities and to sport may be just fun games that have no rules or few rules or no competition. Bringing games from home cultures. Autonomy for kids to learn and to teach their peers.
Over on the barriers side, what are you hearing? What do we need to overcome and dismantle to make these programs happen?
Someone said that if you wear your jersey, you get a free ride on the ferry. And then that grew to like maybe that can just be in any kind of transportation. So if you wear your jersey for your game day, you get free transportation to, break down those barriers. I thought that was very clever. Have true intentions to welcome newcomers into your spaces. We can look at the equipment and everything, but if you develop those relationships, if you develop those friendships, if you really open the doors and, make them feel safe and secure in those spaces, that goes a long ways. Go into the community instead of asking community to come to you, So develop decentralized programming when possible and making sure that in their home turf they can participate in the different activities.
In terms of what community organizations can we engage, everything from municipalities to schools to faith-based organizations, cultural societies and settlement agencies, volunteer organizations, holidays and special events are great opportunities to engage with the community. And one thing that came up from somebody was it's not just about engaging people in the special event, but it's also about following up afterwards. And then language also came up, transportation came up, so these are like working with the communities to address these barriers. I think it's important to engage different community organizations because these are needs, because when we engage those community organizations, we can start to find out what are the barriers, and then together we can help to address them, whether they be transportation in smaller communities, or whether it be things like the language, when people are sending out information, say for registration for soccer, maybe having somebody go over the language that's in that handout, like will people who are newcomers be able to understand it? Should it be translated? Those types of things. So I think the key that from our discussion, one key was it's about relationship building, right? So it's not just a transactional thing.
What kind of education, training, workshops, resources do you feel you need to be able to run inclusive programming and provide a safe space for newcomers? So one of the answers that came up a few times was, of course, cultural sensitivity training, having an understanding of what a newcomer situation is, of what different cultural practices they might have, different religions, different languages, and also just an understanding of what are the different situations where someone might find themselves a newcomer in Canada. They're not always coming here by choice. They could be coming as refugees. They might have been displaced. So also within cultural sensitivity, having an understanding of trauma-informed care, trauma-informed practices, and how you can be a safe space for folks who are experiencing that.
We heard programs, overcoming barriers, who do we need to engage, what training we need to do at the various levels of the sport and physical activity structure. How do we communicate this?
Use existing communication channels. School districts, they communicate out. We can let the public know what we're doing through their channels. A good point was brought up that people who are new to the country often utilize the rec center as their point of first stop. So be connected through partnerships and relationships with them. People, Google yourselves. What comes up? If you want to go to table tennis in Winnipeg, what does that look like? So that's what people are doing to find information. So utilize Google, make sure you're relevant on that, and your websites are updated with information you want. This was not necessarily what you think about as a communication strategy, but to have free public events. And so that is communication, that's bringing awareness to what you do. Be in a park and play, and that's going to draw a lot of eyeballs in the community for you.
I was really fortunate to get to meet Kabir last year at a conference in New York, where he introduced me to the Wellness Through Community Connections project. And that's the Newcomer Initiative, where they're doing peer mentorship here in Victoria. And Kabir came to me and said, we don't know how to measure it. And I was like, well, I've got this idea. There's this research funding agency, and I can put together a grant, and we can get some money and evaluate, and do this evaluation properly. And this week we found out we actually were successful. So now we get to do the fun part and actually start asking those questions properly. So we've looked at a lot of those things, those sense of belonging tools. How do we ask those questions? Because how do we know what we're doing is working? And essentially we decided we need to start at the beginning. We need to take those questions to people who are newer to Canada and ask them, are these the right questions? We think we're asking you about this. And are we? And we need to start using that information. How do we take that into our programs, like Chris said? And I also think about what Sarah was saying as well around that idea of, and Chris was saying about mental health. One of my participants, which is what I'll leave you with, said to me, the more I think about it and the more I understand it, my physical literacy is my mental health. And I think we need to think about that when we go forward.
We need to celebrate our small and quick wins. So clap yourselves, clap your back. Physical activity can create a sense of belonging for us that are new to this country. I live it. I'm a father of 4. My first 2 weeks here in Greater Victoria was not so good. But I went on the basketball pitch, I went and I played cricket, I went and I played, I call it football, you may call it soccer. And we had a great time. I knew where to go to have good food. I made friends. I know where to go to get a good haircut. And that has made my life better. So the future of Falzo Davies, the future Christine Sinclair's, the future Richard Ways, and Minister Qualthrow, you can make that difference. So I thank you for contributing. What's on the wall will actually form a Greater Victoria sport and physical activity action plan for those who are new to Greater Victoria.